Howdy, folks. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn. And today, for you, I have a bit of a Dungeons and Dragons video. And this is a subject that's going to be a bit near and dear to me. And I'm definitely going to be blunt and forward about this. So there is going to be a bit of a parental advisory, as some people may get offended by what I have to say. But you know what? If you tell it to them loud and dirty, they tend to remember. That's kind of my motto. So anyway, the Rainbow Brigade, the Alphabet Mafia, if you will, has been kind of going off on D&D and Wizards of the Coast, saying about, oh, Dungeons and Dragons needs to be more inclusive. And as you can see here, this is actually an article from Wizards of the Coast. And here's the thing about it. Wait for it. It always fucking has been. Yes, folks, that is correct. It always has been, ever since its origins back in the day when it was nothing more than a supplement for chainmail. And, well, let's be forward about this. It's because Gary Gygax was creating a game that he wanted to be inclusive for everyone because he, wait for it, liked money. Folks, what the fuck? Here, let's rewind some time here. I'm going to talk about my first gaming group, my first Dungeons and Dragons group. My first Dungeons and Dragons group, I was 12, 13-ish. And one of the older kids in my neighborhood put together a Dungeons and Dragons group. This was advanced Dungeons and Dragons back then. And it was essentially, it was a bunch of his friends from the neighborhood, which were all essentially, if you will, grungy metalheads, which kind of explains a lot because while my dad is the reason for my earliest peering into metal, essentially this gaming group was kind of why I'm a metalhead now, because they liked bands like Metallica and Iron Maiden, and it kind of trickled down in onto me. So, not nerdy guys by any stretch of the imagination, just a bunch of guys that so happen to like Dungeons and Dragons, PC gaming, and metal music. My second gaming group was a Dragonlance group. I joined this group, I was about 16-ish. Yeah, 15, 16. I think I was 16. The second gaming group consisted of a guy that was going to medical school, a guy that was going to law school, a Marine recon veteran, an Army veteran, a kid from my high school that I actually brought with me, and myself, and a goth chick. You want to talk about being a completely diverse group of individuals. Um, a couple of us had something in common, but basically the group at large, the only thing we all really had in common with one another was we liked Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah, it just so happens too that I ended up dating said big titty goth chick before dating big titty goth chicks was cool. Yeah, that's kind of how it works out. Hell, the first gaming group I played with for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness was the game master was a fucking biker. One of those big ass biker type guys that like riding Harleys and stuff like that, which, yeah, that was cool as shit, but it also kind of sucked because basically the only time we ever gamed was during the winter time when he really didn't ride his motorcycle all that much. Now, listen, folks, I know these pills are hard to swallow, but that's just the truth about it. Dungeons and Dragons has always been a diverse game that was inclusive for everyone. And anyone who plays this, that plays Dungeons and Dragons or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Star Wars D20, Star Wars D6, Cyberpunk, these games have always been diverse, and we've always wanted these games to be diverse because that's the only way the hobby grows. Oh boy. Now, I've seen quite a few individuals online that kind of goes off about the whole setting is, oh, it's always a fantasy medieval setting in Europe. Well, yeah, that's because games like Dungeons and Dragons, its deepest origins has to go all the way back to Gary Gygax and Chainmail, which Chainmail was a medieval European, you know, tabletop war game. And it's it's because Gary Gygax was interested in medieval history, medieval European history. So its roots is deeply seated into medieval Europe and medieval European fantasy. But that doesn't mean that's the only setting. A lot of people forget that Gary Gygax also, as part of Dungeons and Dragons, included Oriental Adventures. And Oriental Adventures, well, it didn't have its last appearance really in Dungeons and Dragons was third edition, and that's because of the Rainbow Brigade once again going, oh, that's racist and bad, which I don't understand why. European Adventures is a lot of fun. I've done Oriental Adventures. You know, playing as a samurai is kick ass, but yeah, apparently have people have problems with that, and unfortunately, because of said people that are ultra sensitive, it's Oriental Ventures is not coming to fifth edition, which fifth edition is soon done, and it doesn't look like it's going to be coming to sixth edition either. So actually, Oriental Ventures being updated for the modern versions of Dungeons and Dragons looks like it's not going to be happening. And the big thing that these people are missing is the Dungeon Master creates the world. They decide what exists, what doesn't exist. And in all honesty, if they don't like someone's world that they have designed, then get some books and design your own world. That's always been a part of the game. I don't understand what's such a big deal. And in all honesty, if you came to my table and you said you want to play a black lesbian nun, I'd look at you and be like, well, black people in this section of the world that we're playing in is rare, but we can work with that. The fact that your character wants to be a lesbian, okay, that's fine. We can work with that. It's rare, but we can work with it. And when it comes to being a nun, well, I don't have any nuns in my world because we don't have any Catholics in my world, but we can also work with that as well. And then that's where I would follow up with, do you need a pencil, paper, and some dice? Because that's the name of the game, is being inclusive. And the other thing that bugs me too is the target is Dungeons and Dragons. No one's talking about Fantasy Hero, which essentially Fantasy Hero is Dungeons and Dragons from a different company. And no one's looking at Pathfinder in the same regards. But Pathfinder is actually Dungeons and Dragons. It's a different version of Dungeons and Dragons. Its origins actually spawned from Dungeons and Dragons. With the original Pathfinder's coming out with a new edition, the original Pathfinder edition was considered by many people as 3.75, which was because it was a break off of D&D 3.5. So the only thing I see in this is as Dungeons and Dragons raises in popularity, people that know nothing about the game, who don't play the game, and probably never will play the game to make things worse, is just kind of coming in and ruin everyone else's fun. But here's the truth. Everyone is more than welcome to come up to a gaming table and join a gaming group, as long as they're not going to be a disruptive ass clown. It's that simple. And it doesn't matter, I don't care if you come up to my table and you start, talking about finger banging Mary Jane Rottencrotch, or come up to my table and start waving your rainbow flag If you're disruptive, you're disruptive, and you're not going to be welcome to join my particular group. And the reason I say this is because, in my experience, that's how gaming groups are. You're welcome to join and have fun and join in on the adventures as long as you're not being a disruptive ass clown. Anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap this up at that. I honestly really didn't enjoy making this video because I feel like it's a video that didn't need to be made. But because of everything going on, I feel that it needed to be said, if you get my drift. Anyway, folks, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Have yourself a wonderful day and happy gaming.